Miss
Iya,
Prila.
siap, Miss.
Miss Prila boleh pimpin doa ya untuk kegiatan
Siap.
hari ini.
Baik. Oke, terima kasih Miss Arum. Assalamualaikum, good morning everyone. Ya, salam sehat semuanya. Sebelum kita melakukan kegiatan kita pagi ini, kita berdoa bersama menurut keyakinan dan kepercayaan masing-masing. Berdoa dipersilahkan. Berdoa selesai. Terima kasih. Kembali ke Miss Arum.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih banyak Miss Prila. Langsung kita mulai saja ya untuk webinarnya. Semoga semuanya bisa mengikuti dengan baik dan mendapatkan manfaat dari webinar ini. Langsung saja ke Miss Rahma sebagai pembicara yang pertama. Silakan Miss Rahma.
Terima kasih Miss Arum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Yang pertama saya hormati semua mentor kelas 11 dan 12. Terima kasih ya. Tidak capek-capeknya mengingatkan anak-anak, mendampingi anak-anak di selama kegiatan after test ini. Di sini saya mengingatkan sebelum kita masuk ke webinar ini, kalian sudah mengikuti rangkaian kegiatan after test ya. Yaitu pertama kelas 11 psikotes ya kemarin di psikotes Inadata oleh jurusanku.com, tetapi memang masih ada yang belum melakukan. Harapannya segera melakukan sebelum jam 12 siang hari ini karena ini berbayar dan kalian sudah orang tua sudah mengeluarkan biaya untuk ini ya, dan jadi dimanfaatkan semaksimal mungkin karena hasilnya juga sangat bagus ya untuk kalian yang masih bingung dengan jurusannya. Jadi ini jam 12 siang ditunggu oleh kru dari Psikotes Inadata ya. Jika kalian tidak melakukan sebelum jam 12 sebelum jam 12 tersebut, maka kalian tidak akan memiliki hasilnya karena kita tidak bisa menunggu setelah itu ya, karena semua rekap hasil dari psikotes itu menunggu peserta yang terakhir. Jadi kita nggak bisa merugikan hak yang lain menunggu beberapa orang saja. Jadi sampai jam 12 saja, jika tidak berarti konsekuensinya kalian tidak memiliki hasil psikotes karir. Lalu juga kepada siswa kelas 12 kemarin TO UTBK yang pertama ya dari lulus negeri, bagi yang belum ditunggu juga diselesaikan ya melakukan TO, dan ini TO pertama dari rangkaian 8 TO yang akan kita lakukan, dan ini sangat baik sekali buat kalian ya untuk nanti bersaing di UTBK. Jadi tolong diselesaikan, dan nanti di TEM 2 kelas 12 setiap bulan akan melakukan TO UTBK di hari belajar, hari reguler belajar ya. Nanti jadwalnya sebenarnya sudah ada di kalender akademik sudah dibagikan kepada kamu dan orang tua. Baik, hari ini kelas 11 dan 12 bergabung ya untuk mendengarkan webinar mengenai Cybersexual Harassment yang memang sudah banyak sekali terjadi ya di zamannya digital sekarang, apalagi di zaman di masa pandemik seperti ini. Jadi mohon sekali kalian dengarkan dari narasumber yang ada. Ini materinya sangat bagus sekali. Jadi kalian memiliki nanti knowledge ketika kalian menghadapi sendiri atau orang-orang terdekat kalian menghadapi masalah ini. Lalu nanti besok ya itu kelas 11 akan TO TPS dari lulus negeri. Mohon semuanya mengikuti ya, karena penting dan berguna sekali bagi kalian. Dan kelas 12 psikotes karir. Nah, ini rezeki nih buat kelas 12 ya. Ini ada bonus psikotes yang ketiga, berarti angkatan kelas 12 melakukan psikotes setiap tahun dari kelas 10, 11, 12. Ini baik sekali ya untuk dilakukan, dan nanti bisa dibandingkan dengan hasil psikotes karir yang kelas 11. Itu rangkaiannya. Baik, saya akan masuk ke pembicaraan webinar ya. Baik, Mr. Arif, mohon diberikan screen mengenai pembicara kita, karena ada istilah tak kenal maka tak sayang, maka Miss Rama akan mengenalkan dulu pembicara kita. Jadi kita nggak santai ya, ini topiknya santai. Nanti juga ada breakup room ya buat kalian, jadi nanti bisa diskusi lebih detail sesuai gendernya ya. Yang laki-laki dengan nanti Maulana pembicaranya, yang perempuan nanti dengan Laila pembicaranya. Mr. Arif, kan ada slide ya tentang profil dari ininya, dari pembicara. Mohon slide-nya, Mr. Arif. Kita tunggu ya. Ya, agar anak-anak mengenal pembicara kita. Oke, Mr. Arif.
Wait, Miss.
Ya, ini kedua pembicara kita sebenarnya sedang berada di belahan dunia di sana ya, di Amerika ya. Laila ada di Florida, di Miami, lalu Maulana ada di Michigan ya. Oke, sebentar. Terima kasih ya sebelumnya saya ucapkan kepada Laila dan Maulana. Next, sir. Next slide. Untuk memberikan kesempatannya. Ini Laila Raiza Nelanda, dia lahir di Jakarta tanggal 16 November tahun 2000, SMP SD-nya itu di Sekolah Golongan Mandiri ya. Lalu junior high-nya dia habiskan di Mentari International School di Jakarta. SMA-nya dia tamatkan di EF Academy di New York. Lalu sekarang dia merupakan mahasiswa di University of Miami, Florida. Majornya adalah psychology dan dia merupakan founder dari ASIS Indonesia Organization ya. Nanti kalau udah lewat dari pandemik, boleh kita lakukan lagi kegiatan di ASIS Indonesia. Kalian yang membutuhkan kegiatan komunitas ya, social community, boleh nanti bergabung di ASIS Indonesia Organizations. Next slide, sir. Ya, yang kedua pembicara kita adalah Ahmad Maulana Howard. Dia lahir di Jakarta 20 Mei 2000, menamatkan SD-nya di Mentari International School, lalu SMP-nya di Mentari International School, SMA-nya di UWC di Amerika, lalu universitasnya dia sekarang sedang belajar di Western Michigan University, majornya Flight Aviation. Jadi nanti boleh ya di sesi tanya jawab. Jika kalian mau bertanya di luar dari konteks tema webinar kita, boleh mungkin mengenai Flight Aviation yang diambil major oleh Maulana dan juga Psychology yang diambil oleh Laila. Baik, selanjutnya saya akan berikan kepada Maulana atau Laila. Ya, Maulana boleh share materinya. Untuk perkenalan boleh Maulana dan Laila, silakan.
Terima kasih, Miss Rahma. Nama saya Maulana. Saya sekarang di Amerika belajar aviasi. Hari ini saya bersama teman saya, Laila, akan menjelaskan tentang Cybersexual Harassment.
Ya, nama saya Laila. Saya sekarang lagi sekolah di University of Miami. Major saya psychology and minor saya adalah biologi dan English. Jadi hari ini kita akan melakukan seminar tentang cybersexual harassment. We are going to conduct the presentation in English, but the slides are going to be written in Indonesia. So if you have any questions or you need us to explain more in Indonesia, please let us know, because we're going to be explaining everything in English since we converse better in English and our vocabulary for Indonesia is very limited. So yeah, we can start.
Let's get started.
So what is sexual harassment or violence? As you can see in the slide, this definition is obtained from the World Health Organization. Sexual harassment is the act of sexual behaviors that is done threateningly or without the person's consent. Consent means izin. So a few things to remember about sexual harassment is the fact that first, there is no consent on behalf of the victim, and second, there is a threatening sort of behavior. So as you may know, sexual harassment is very common in females, but it doesn't mean that this doesn't happen to males. So sexual harassment can also happen to men or anybody. Nobody is safe. Sexual harassment can happen to children, sexual harassment can happen to the elderly and also people with disabilities. So anybody can experience sexual harassment.
So here are the examples of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Sexual harassment and sexual assault is not just in person and physical. These things can happen online as well, as we will mention later on during this presentation. Some of the examples are rape, sexual intimidation, sexual assault at school, at work, slavery, sexual slavery, any movement, any touch that's not willingly, forced marriage, forced pregnancy, forced abortion, forcing somebody to use contraception or forcing somebody to be sterile, and being sexually aggressive to somebody is example of sexual harassment. And the key thing to remember with all these examples is that the force aspect of it. Consent is important in all of these. Without consent, it will be considered as sexual harassment. And for those who don't know what consent is pretty much translates into izin. So tanpa izin, you cannot do any of that.
So as my co-host has said, consent is extremely important. So even if it's in the case of relationships, even if it's your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you still need to get that consent from them when you're about to do a sexual activity. Or even if you're in a marriage, even if you're husband and wives, it can still be considered as sexual harassment if you don't receive that consent from your partner. So before moving into any sexual activity, please ask them if they're willing to do the activity before doing anything else. So based on the examples, my partner mentioned rape or pemerkosaan. So this is very tough and it's a criminal activity that can have a long-lasting effect on the person. So a victim of rape can have a psychological consequence and also a physical aspect. But not only just rape, any victim of sexual assault, whether it be cyber or sexual harassment by touching, unwanted touching, or comments, you can still have that psychological aspect. So for a victim of sexual harassment, they can have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. With that, this person can have nightmares, recurring nightmares every day, which will make their lives extremely miserable. They might have suicidal tendencies, and they might also blame themselves for what happened, which can lead to a depressive episode. And for the physical aspect, a victim of rape or sexual assault can get a sexually transmitted disease. And this can be chlamydia, HIV, herpes, hepatitis B, and other diseases. They can also get medical conditions like vagina being inflamed, infection in their private parts, or they might have throat pain from the abuse. And rape can also lead to an unwanted pregnancy. So sexual harassment really have devastating consequences, especially to the victims. And this doesn't only apply to rape. As I said, it also applies to cyber sexual harassment because it might cause a long-term psychological effect to the victim.
Yeah, and these things don't only happen to women. These things happen to men as well. So for those men who has been sexually assaulted and raped, they will also experience these things, these conditions. Some may be more difficult than others to handle, and that depends case by case. But it's important to know these effects that one may have on somebody. So we're going to play a video on consent, which is the recurring topic in this presentation because of how important it is. So this video is going to explain how T represents a sexual behavior, a sexual experience. So if you want somebody to have sex with you or do something, you have to have consent. And in this video, it's going to explain how T represents a sexual move and nature. So please pay attention to the video, and we will explain more on the video later.
Can anybody hear the video?
No, I cannot hear the
Okay.
voice. Malana, what about the voice?
Okay, we are having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
All right, is that working now or no?
I still can't hear it.
No? Why is that?
No. No.
Can you hear it on your computer?
Let me take out my earphones.
Biasanya share sound-nya belum diaktifkan.
Cup of tea.
Yeah.
Okay, now.
That
works?
And they're like, if you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say, no, thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind, and you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea, and they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea, and they said yes, but in the time it took you to boil the kettle or brew the tea and add the milk, they're now unconscious. You should just put the tea down, make sure the unconscious person is safe, and this is the important part again, don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they are safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, but you wanted tea last week, or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, but you wanted tea last night. If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you are able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea.
Okay, so there are 3 takeaways from this video that I think is important. One is that unconscious people cannot give consent. So people who have been drinking, people who have been under the influence, people who are not physically present cannot give consent. So even if they say yes, but they're impaired, then that does not count. People under the age of consent cannot give consent. And also, another important thing is that if they say yes one day and they say no the other day, then it doesn't mean that you can because they said yes yesterday. So every time you want to do something, you have to ask them first. Every time you want something to happen, ask them. Make sure that they really give you consent. Otherwise, it will be considered as sexual harassment and an assault to be touching somebody inappropriately.
If you're still...
So here are things that you need to consider before sex and intercourse with somebody. Unprotected sex is very common, and it's important to know the potential issues and the potential problems for having unprotected sex. So before doing it, please consider these things. One, whether or not you are potentially ready to have a child, because unwanted pregnancy is very common when you have unprotected sex. Whether or not you can afford to raise a child. That child will need raising, and it will cost a lot of money to raise a child. Whether or not you want to have an abortion. Abortion costs money. Abortion also has a lot of negative consequences to somebody's body, and psychologically has a lot of impact as well. Whether or not you could do it at another time, it may affect your future success, your goals in life. If you have a child at a very young age, what are you going to do with your family? What are you going to do with your parents? What are you going to do with your future job, your future aspirations? And it's also important to know how much influence other people have on your decision, and whether or not people will judge you, whether or not people will make fun of you for having a child, or putting the child up for adoption or for abortion.
So, as my partner has said, you have to think about these things before having any sexual activity or sexual intercourse, because there are a lot of outcomes. And having sexual intercourse leads to pregnancy. The only way you can 100% prevent pregnancy is if you don't have sex. Abstinence. Because even if you use condoms or even if you use contraceptions, there are still that risk where you might get pregnant. So if you want to 100% not get pregnant and 100% not get an STD, then don't have sex. But if you do want to think about engaging in sexual activity, then you might have to think about the risk factors and the future outcomes. So my partner has said, are you ready to have kids? Because kids are expensive and kids will delay your future goals. So really think about kids before you have sex, because even with contraception, you might still have sex, get pregnant. So think about that, and then also think about the outcomes from having more than one sex partners. Having more than one sex partners means that you're more prone to getting STDs. And contraceptions other than condoms do not prevent you from not getting an STD. So contraceptions such as birth control, whether it be pills, implants, IUDs, patches, they do not protect you from getting an STD. Only condoms, and condoms itself has a risk chance, and you might still contract that STD. And there's a wide range of STDs. There are the bacterial ones, the virus ones, and we know that some of these diseases are incurable, such as HIV, they're incurable. Herpes is incurable. So really think about the risk before you have sex with one, or even more if you have sex with multiple people, because the chances of you contracting an STD is even higher. And then lastly, you have to think about what you can do yourself to prevent sexual harassment, because there's a lot of people out there, especially if you engage yourself in, for example, if you're in that scene where you go to clubs, or if you are on a dating profile, you still have to think about the chances of potentially keeping yourself safe from sexual harassment.
I think adding on to that, this does not only have to do with penetration. You can get STDs and you can get all the bacteria from as simple as kissing, saliva, mouth to mouth. Any of that has also its own risk. So be mindful of that, because penetration is not the only way to contract sexual transmitted diseases. So here are some statistics on the sexual assault towards women in particular in Indonesia in the year 2020. So in 2020, there are 299,911 cases of sexual harassment towards women. And 300,000 is much less than the previous year of 431,000. But it's important to note with these statistics is that not every single person reported it. Not every single woman who experienced sexual harassment reported it. So these numbers are way lower than they truly are, especially now with harassment online. These levels of harassment, they vary. Some may be a small case of body shaming or small case of harassment, while others can be physical and rape case. So there are many reasons why people don't report sexual harassment. And one of them is that their system is not very supportive. And this could be the government, this could be they're as simple as the family, this could be the group of friends are not supportive, this could be not having somebody to talk to, not having somebody to back them up and to make them feel valued. They're scared, they're shy. They don't want to be blamed. They don't want the victim to be blamed. As somebody who experienced sexual harassment, they don't want to be blamed for it because they didn't know, they shared something that they thought that they could trust. So I think it's important to know that when somebody is experiencing this, we need to be very supportive because they are going through a tough time online and a tough time personally. Maybe they don't share it with you. Maybe they don't tell you, hey, this is what's going on. But not having a system that is helpful for them is giving them an even harder time.
Now we're moving into the section of cybersexual harassment. If you guys have any questions, you can put them out in the chat. We do have a question and answer at the end of the presentation, but if you guys have any questions, you can just put in the chat. Just to add on to what my partner said, the numbers that were showed are only cases against women. So we have to think about those numbers, realize like there are still cases of male sexual assault or cases against children or the elderly or anybody else that aren't counted in those numbers. So the numbers are probably very large in reality. And also, people tend to not report their cases because sexual harassment in itself is extremely traumatizing. And sometimes victims, they're scared to speak out. So the reported cases are actually extremely low because many people don't even come out with their stories because they will feel pressure against society and society will victim blame them. So we have to think about the fact that there are probably a lot more cases than what the statistics show. So now we're going to start with the cybersexual harassment portion. Yes, so this is a picture of a hamster. And since we're an avid user of social media, especially the Gen Zs, we all use social media. We know that social media gives us a lot of benefits, but at the same time, there are downsides to those benefits that we should think about.
So here are some of the power that social media has, in particular, just for our convenience, but also for sexual harassment purposes. Social media, as we know, we can share everything online. We can share our pictures, our videos, share our thoughts, send messages to people from anywhere in the world. Social media and technology can allow us to have this presentation. But social media, if used properly, has a lot of useful tools and a lot of useful platforms. There are organizations online that can help people treat their sexual harassment cases. There's ways for us to look for help. We can text an NGO for help. We can send anonymous information online. We can share our feelings. We can find supportive communities. These things are helpful, especially for those experiencing a case of sexual harassment and have nobody to share. Because there are people out there who will listen, and there are people out there who can help, who have the knowledge, who have the information, who have the resource to help. So if we use social media properly, and if we use social media to the advantage and the purpose that it was built for, is to help each other out, then social media can be a very powerful tool. However, as we know, there's both good and bad sides of social media.
Yeah, and we should know that there are many creepy people on social media that uses it to their own advances. So in social media, we should definitely be careful with those that we may not know. So if you receive messages from random strangers or comments, just get rid of them. Do not befriend creepy people on social media. I mean, obviously there are friendly strangers, but we should be careful with who you wish to converse with or engage with, because they might have a sinister plan, or they might be trying to harass you. So you should always be careful with the people you talk to on social media. And you should always learn and educate yourself about the privacy settings of different social media applications. So for example, on Instagram, you can make your account private, so you can limit the people that have access to your social media account. You can make your stories private, or you can do a close friend story. You can even limit comments on your pictures. Like for example, on Instagram, you can limit them so that your people who are not your followers couldn't comment on your pictures. So there are different privacy settings on different social media platforms that you can use to your advantage to protect yourself from potential sexual harassers. You can definitely make sure that you protect yourself. In my case, I make all of my accounts private, but honestly, it's your preference. You can make it public, but I personally make mine private, and I only accept people who I know and who I am close to, in order to limit that interaction with strangers that might be negative in nature. And lastly, it's very important to also get consent when you share or post a picture of other people. So as we may know, even if you post a picture, like let's say it's a picture that you have with your friends, it'll be great, just ask for their consent. Ask them, can I post this picture with you in it? If they say yes, then perfect. Go ahead and post that picture. But if they say no, then you can either not post it, or you can kind of crop them out of the picture. It's really your own preference. But if they do not consent to the picture being posted on your social media, just please respect their choices and don't do it. And it's also like that even in professional cases. You should always credit like pictures, like for example, like a photographer, you should credit them, or you should have their consent. Like for example, like a copyright, you should always have consent and not just freely post pictures without the person knowing.
So sexual harassment online. I think this is one of the more common appearances in the recent years, mainly for spreading images, spreading videos online that's not consensual. So cybersexual harassment online consists of sending, receiving images that's not consensual. So if somebody sends you something that you don't want to see, that's considered as sexual harassment online. If you send somebody an image that they do not want to receive, that's also considered as sexual harassment online. Besides that, it is very common to see comments, sexual comments on somebody's Instagram post, on somebody's Facebook post, or on somebody's image, body shaming, talking about their outfits, their attire, their body, and commenting on how they look, what they wear. That's inappropriate. That's something that you shouldn't do. And if you do have an opinion on something, keep it to yourself, because it will hurt their feelings is one, but also it will make you look bad for putting out that comment online. And it could potentially be very heartbreaking and devastating for the person who posted the picture, because they posted it to share it to the world, and they posted it because they are happy. They wanted people to see, not to shame and not to be sexually harassed online. Blackmailing is something that happens when you share a picture, a video to somebody, and they threaten to spread that picture, whether it's for sexual favors or for money. In this case, you want to keep all evidences of that and make sure that you block them and remove them completely. The data and all their activities will always be present online, but if you can avoid and you can detach yourself from that situation, is the best method possible. Stalking on social media is very common. You can't really tell if people is stalking you online, and that's why it's important that you make sure you know your privacy settings, you know who is following you at all times, you know who you let see all your images and your pictures, so that people from the outside or unwanted people will not be looking into your profile and trying to figure out who you are and commenting on your body and commenting on your outfits and pictures. So here we have a scenario for us to think about, and I think it's important for us to understand the possibilities of what may happen if somebody decides to send pictures while they're in a relationship but break up afterwards. You want to read this out?
Ya, oke, Maulana and Laila, ini Miss Rahma informasikan kepada anak-anak ya. Jadi di sini ada senario ya. Jadi seorang teman datang kepada kalian tanpa kesal. Setelah kalian ngobrol, ternyata teman kalian mengungkapkan bahwa mereka baru saja putus dengan pacar mereka. Lalu mereka kesal karena mereka putus, tetapi juga khawatir karena mantan mereka memiliki beberapa foto eksplisit yang dikirim saat mereka masih pacaran. Teman itu tahu mantan pasangannya marah dan khawatir apa yang akan mereka lakukan dengan foto-foto tersebut. Nah, oleh karena itu, kalian harus belajar yang mana tahu ada teman terdekatnya atau diri kalian nanti ke depannya atau sudah yang merasakan hal ini, mengalami hal ini, bagaimana solusinya ya, tindakan yang baiknya. Baik, Mr. Arif, mari kita share dengan breakup room ya, untuk yang kita akan bagi dua. Anak perempuan mohon join dengan Laila. Nanti di sini lakukannya sesantai mungkin karena ini diskusi ya. Nanti dengan Laila, lalu yang laki-laki dengan Maulana untuk berdiskusi bagaimana kalau skenario ini terjadi pada kalian. Ya, apa yang akan kalian lakukan, tindakan apa yang kalian lakukan. Di sini sudah ada untuk pilihan ya, breakup room-nya, boleh di perempuan dan laki-laki boleh join sekarang ya, masuk ke breakout.
Okay, please join. Okay. I am leaving.
How do I leave to this background room? I open my.
Suara Miss Rahma di mute tadi. Nggak kedengaran.
Ya, baik, anak-anak segera berjoin ya di breakout room perempuan dan laki-laki. Nanti bisa berdiskusi dengan Maulana dan Laila ya. Jangan malu-malu, jawab aja jika itu terjadi di kamu ya. Apa yang akan kamu lakukan? Silakan. Nanti kita 15 menit balik lagi ke diskusi ini ya, diskusi utama. Terima kasih.
Silakan untuk klik breakout room-nya. Lalu pilih yang laki-laki di room laki-laki, yang perempuan di room perempuan sesuai dengan gendernya masing-masing. Terima kasih.
Ya, kepada anak-anak di sini ada note yang join breakout room, tolong diklik, lalu nanti pilih yang perempuan atau laki-laki, lalu join. Mohon dilakukan sekarang. Ya, di sini ada join breakout room, diklik, lalu pilih yang perempuan atau laki-laki sesuai dengan gender kalian, lalu klik join agar kalian join dengan pembicara di breakout room-nya.
Miss, maaf, di saya belum ada Miss breakout room.
Ini
Saya juga.
Belum ada Miss Rahma?
Belum ada, Miss.
Oh, belum ada, sebentar ya.
Saya juga.
Ya, Miss Rahma
Sabar
tanya
ya, sedang
sebentar ya. Miss Rahma tanya Mr. Arif. Mr. Arif, bagaimana nih di saya udah ada sih di Mr. Arif, bagaimana di anak-anak belum kelihatan untuk join breakout room-nya?
Kelihatan ya. Oke, dilihat di pojok kanan atasnya mungkin ya.
Ya, lihat di pojok kanan atas ya. Anak-anak jangan left dulu ya. Ini absensi masih kita lakukan sampai akhir acara. Jadi jangan left untuk kegiatan ini. Yang ada harusnya kalian join breakout room. Apakah sudah dapat anak-anak?
belum Miss.
Gak ada interaction menunya gitu, Miss.
Nggak ada menunya. Mr. Arif mohon dibantu.
Oke, yang belum siapa? Kira belum.
Di bawah switch kamera sih, di bawah switch kamera yang ada di bawah liftnya, terus ada switch to gallery view di atasnya.
Jadi ada yang bisa tampilannya, ada juga yang enggak Miss.
Mungkin di HP kali ya?
Di
Mungkin
iPad
devices-nya.
sama. Aku pakai iPad tidak ada pilihan breakout Zoom.
Oh, kalau aku ada sih di sini.
Mr. Arif aja mungkin satu-satu ya, gimana nih?
Ya, itu saya masukin satu-satu ya. Ini Vivin saya masukin ke dulu ya.
Siap. Oke, baik Mr. Arif. Tadi informasi dari Miss Rama bahwa acaranya tidak jadi di breakout Zoom karena membutuhkan waktu yang lama, jadi kita acaranya tetap di ruang utama saja.
Oke, siap.
Yep, Miss Rama, silakan dilanjutkan.
Ya, di close aja ya. Oke, Laila, Maulana, kita diskusi tentang materi senario di sini aja. Di bagian ini saja. Oke, mohon maaf ini ada kesalahan teknis ya. Jadi, Maulana tolong di-share atau Laila share tadi PPT-nya.
Ini breakout-nya akan tertutup dalam 3 detik, Miss.
Ya, siap.
Maulana, tolong share presentasinya.
What just
Mohon
happened?
maaf ya, ada
Ternyata ada kesalahan teknis.
Ya, sorry.
Oh,
Jadi
ya
kita
udahlah.
senario itu di sini aja. Tadi balik lagi ke bagaimana Laila langsung ini anak-anakku sekalian ya, siswa kelas 11 dan 12 mungkin karena di penyampaian bahasa Inggris so far sebelum senario ini Miss Rama akan rekap dulu ya apa aja informasi yang kalian dapat. Tadi sebelum melakukan sexual activity perlu sekali consent ya, izin dari pihak lawan pihak kalian atau partner. Tapi juga kalian harus ingat bahwa kita hidup di Indonesia, ada norma-norma agama dan norma-norma norma-norma keberadaban yang harus kita concern juga, kita pahami juga ya bahwa seks sebelum menikah di dalam semua agama itu dilarang. Lalu abortion ya, abortion itu juga atau aborsi secara hukum di Indonesia juga tidak boleh. Mungkin di beberapa bagian negara Amerika dilegalkan, tapi di Indonesia ini sangat-sangat ilegal atau tidak diperbolehkan. Ya, lalu tadi seks ya dengan dilakukan seks sebelum menikah itu banyak sekali efeknya ya, impactnya atau efek sampingnya. Selain bisa menyebabkan kehamilan, juga penyakit-penyakit penyakit di kelamin ya, seperti itu. Lalu juga mental ya, itu mental health-nya juga bisa terpengaruh. Lalu juga kenapa tadi data ya, dari statistik data laporan atau data mengenai kekerasan seksual di Indonesia itu sebenarnya hanya yang di permukaan saja yang ada. Itu kayak iceberg, hanya atasnya saja kelihatan, sebenarnya jumlahnya itu di kenyataan itu lebih besar karena orang-orang itu korban dari pelecehan seksual ya. Itu tidak mau melapor ya, pasti karena malu, karena ribet ataupun karena takut untuk memberikan informasi itu kepada orang lain seperti itu. Lalu satu hal lagi, poin yang Miss ambil tadi ya dari presentasi Laila dan Maulana, satu hal ada etik ya ketika kita bermedia sosial, ketika kita mau share foto pribadi, harus melihat foto ini apa manfaatnya bagi orang lain dan apa juga efeknya buat kamu, karena sekali kamu sudah post ini for the rest of ini akan last for forever ya, karena jejak digital itu nggak bisa dihapus ya. Lalu juga kalau kalian mau share foto orang lain, mohon minta izin ya. Apakah mereka mau izin atau tidak. Oke, baik, sekarang kita masuk ke senario ya tentang kasus ini. Untuk menyingkat waktu, Laila boleh memberikan bagaimana jawaban yang menurut kamu yang ideal untuk senario ini. Silakan Laila.
Saya.
Silakan.
Ya, karena kita udah limit of time, jadi kita ini aja Laila aja bagaimana ini idealnya di laki-laki. Ini senarionya. Nggak, it's okay. Jadi nanti ini dari kamu atau based on mungkin kamu pernah ada sharing sama kamu atau ini nanti kamu jawab. Lalu untuk yang dari laki-laki nanti Maulana boleh kasih informasi mengenai jawaban ini. Silakan Laila.
Oke. Jika situasi seperti ini terjadi kepada teman kalian atau kalian, what you can do is, if it happens to you, please do not panic. You have to gain composure, and it has to be known that once you break up, kalau kalian udah putus, foto-foto eksplisit itu bukan properti kalian lagi. Jadi, kalau misalnya kalian udah putus dan kalian punya foto-foto eksplisit pacar kalian, itu kalian butuh konsen mereka lagi untuk karena kalian udah gak pacaran dan itu foto-foto mereka, jadi kalian butuh konsen. Jadi kalau kalian sebarin itu ilegal karena itu bukan properti kalian dan itu adalah foto privasi. And you have to respect that it's their private pictures, just so that once you break up, you literally have no right over that picture. And kalau udah putus, you should delete those pictures. Jadi kalau kalian punya foto-foto eksplisit pacar kalian and kalian udah putus, it should be common sense for you to delete those pictures. Karena it's the private pictures of the other person. Ya kan? Nah, tapi kan ada nih orang-orang yang kayak aneh ya, masa malam mau di-share. Nah, ini tuh nggak boleh, ini tuh illegal. Karena you need consent to spread those pictures. So, if you spread those pictures, then you can get repercussions, because you cannot do that. It's illegal and you need their consent. So what you can do is, if that happens, you have to learn your rights. You have to know that this is your pictures. Jadi kalian punya ownership of that picture. Jadi you can either, if you're too shy to do this, you can either tell your closest friends or your trusted person to tell the person that has the pictures not to send those pictures and to delete them. But if they've already spread them or leaked them, then what you can do is, kalau misalnya it's in social media platforms, you can report the content. Kalian bisa kayak, misalnya if it's on Instagram or Snapchat, you can report the content. Terus, if it's already spread everywhere and you cannot delete this trace, because if nudes are leaked online, they're basically there. They're in the cyber, they're in the digital, they can't get erased. So what you can do is you can report it to the government officials, and you can basically don't forget to screenshot everything. Since it is cyber, you need to document everything. So if you have your nudes leaked online or something happened, since it's on your phone or it's digital, please screenshot everything, screenshot the messages, screenshot the emails, screenshot everything, and keep the evidence, so that if you have an investigation or if you want to report it to a local official, you have those evidence that will help in your case. But
berarti Laila, intinya kalau dia udah ada fotonya itu sebenarnya kalau udah putus ya, itu bukan miliknya ya, begitu ya Laila ya. Ya, jadi itu jadi anak-anak ya yang sudah mantan pacarnya diingatkan foto itu tidak boleh di-share, malah itu karena itu bukan hak miliknya ya. Jadi satu lagi dari Laila tadi, semua pembicaraan kalian ya mengenai hal foto tersebut itu harus disimpan, karena itu nanti akan berguna jika nanti misalnya ada ya yang misalnya pasangan putusnya tidak baik, sebelah pihak saja dia pengen dendam atau ada dendam atau bagaimana menggunakan yang tidak baik, hal itu semua percakapan itu harus kalian simpan ya, karena itu bisa nanti kalau harus sangat genting dan penting ya kalian bisa lapor ya, karena kan ada sekarang cyber police ya. Nanti itu akan kita bahas nanti di term depan. Ya, ini kita nanti dari kepolisian yang membahas tentang cybercrime. Ini termasuk dari cybercrime juga. Oke, thank you Laila. Next.
Jadi
and
please.
I think it's important to. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Silakan Maulana.
I think it's important to note as well that in Indonesian law, you cannot record. You cannot record any sexual activity, any sexual activity, any photos and things like that. Those are actually under Indonesian law not allowed. So even if it's for your own personal use, even if it's for your own privacy, recording any sexual activity under Indonesian law is not allowed. So do it at your own risk.
Yeah, definitely. Jadi anak-anak boleh ingat kasusnya Giselle ya, dan kasusnya Ariel Peter Pan ya. Jadi mereka merekam kegiatan aktivitas seksual mereka, tapi mereka tidak berniat untuk men-sharingkan ya, tetapi karena orang ketiga, pihak ketiga yang memposted atau mendeliver ke media sosial ya. Lalu terjadi, dan kemarin itu kita lihat bahwa Ariel Peter Pan itu mendapatkan hukuman ya, dia di penjara karena memang benar sesuai dengan law atau undang-undang Indonesia tidak boleh merekam kegiatan seksual walaupun itu untuk kepentingan pribadi ya, dan juga bagi orang yang menyebarluaskan itu hukumannya ada juga. Jadi memang hati-hati ketika melakukan rekaman ataupun menyimpan, even itu untuk privacy ya. Jadi memang ya karena kita berada di Indonesia, ada norma agama, norma sosial, norma ketimuran yang harus diperhatikan. Oke, next Salsia and Maulana.
Salsia jahat.
Sorry Laila and Maulana, sorry.
Oke, terus Ya pokoknya kalian, kalau misalnya pacar kalian bikin foto, please kayak kalian jangan jadi orang itu deh, kayak udah delete aja, kayak ngapain sih disimpen, itu tuh bukan foto kalian juga, itu juga hak mereka, privasi mereka, jadi please delete fotonya, dan jangan ditunjukin ke teman-teman kalian, jangan di-share, karena itu tuh nggak boleh. Nah, tadi yang Miss Rama udah bilang, it's a case, so there's this thing called sextortion. Sextortion itu sexual harassment where a person will threaten to release your explicit pictures for either money or something that will benefit them. So for example, I know a lot of cases like this. My family member of mine got sextorted. So she was talking to a stranger on Facebook. She sent her explicit pictures to that stranger on Facebook. Okay, just don't do this, okay? Do not be like her. Don't send strangers your private pictures. But that's what she did. She sent those private pictures to the stranger on Facebook. And then, what do you know? The stranger asked her for money, basically blackmailed her for money. So the stranger threatened her. He said that he will release all the pictures that she sent. In exchange, he wants money. He wants 1 million rupiah. And I feel like a lot of cases like this happens because it might be that you are unaware. So I would suggest for you not to send private pictures to somebody you just talked to on social media. Okay? Just do not send explicit pictures to random strangers or friends that you just met. But in case that it happens, and in case you already sent them, and they threatened you and blackmailed you and asked for money, what you can do is don't pay them. I know that you're scared. I know that you feel threatened and like you don't want your pictures all over the internet, but just don't pay them. That's what they want. Because if you do, they might blackmail you more for more money. It can last a long time. We don't want that. What you can do is you can block that person completely. Okay? You can stop all communication with that person. And before blocking them or deleting the chats or whatever, it's crucial to keep screenshots of everything. Like I said, please document everything. Because if one day you want to bring it to a government official or to a police officer, you have all this substantial evidence that will help you in your case. So document all the messages that you have with this sextortionist, the abuser, and block them. And then what you can do is you can private your social media accounts. And if it's very bad, you can contact a lawyer, get lawyered, or contact the authority. But it's very important for you to keep your social media accounts private. Always, it's optional, but always learn about the privacy usage of social media and always be smart. Because we're an avid social media user, you have to be smart not to just spread around your private pictures on social media, because this might happen. Somebody might blackmail you. So just protect yourself and don't send pictures to strangers. But, you know, even your closest person, they can be the one to sextort you out of money. So if you send a picture to your boyfriend and girlfriend and they blackmail you, like, oh, I have your picture, now I want money, you better give me the money. Do not give them that satisfaction, okay? That picture is yours. You own that picture. It's your own private right. It's illegal for them to spread your nudes. So do not fall for their advances. Do not pay them money. Just protect yourself, report it to the authority, block them, protect your social media, and also get support, because this can be very traumatizing. So always take care of your mental health.
And even if you pay them money, they might still send it anyway. So
Yeah.
don't give them any money. Just cut it off completely and avoid it as much and as best possible.
Because that's what they want. So do not give in. Don't comply to everything that they say. because, you know, if they ask for money once, they might ask it again. So just stop.
And continuing to that, here are some things that you need to think about before sending a picture. Firstly, it's very important to think about who you're sending this picture to. Is it somebody that you can trust? Is it somebody that you're close with? What is your relationship with this person? How do you know this person? Do you know this person well enough for you to trust them with your pictures? Whether or not you are sending this picture with your consent, and are they forcing you to send these pictures to them? What are you going to do if you break up with them in the future? Do you think they are the kind of person that will blackmail you when you guys break up? Or are they going to delete them when you break up? What is this person going to do when you have an argument with them, when you are not on good terms? So these are things that you need to think about before sending somebody a picture, because once you send somebody a picture online, it's going to stay there. Even if you delete the chat, even if you delete the user, those pictures will always be there. And there will always be a trace from where it came from, who it came from. So it's important to know that there is always going to be a risk sending pictures online to somebody who you know and who you don't know. So here are some examples of the problems that you may encounter in cybersexual harassment. So somebody who experienced cybersexual harassment is very similar to somebody who experienced rape, more psychologically than physically. People who experience cybersexual harassment, they feel ashamed, embarrassed, they're scared, they feel like they're the one that did something wrong, even if somebody else is blackmailing them. It's a shame because they trusted that person with the information, but they spread it. So it's not their fault. And it's important for people to know that it's not the fault of the victim. It's not the fault of the person who shares the videos, who shares the pictures. It's important for the people who support it's important for us to support people who are sexually harassed online, because these things happen a lot and very common.
Adding to that, please never victim shame, because there's a lot of victim shaming that goes around sexual harassment. Like a lot of people would, for example, in the cases of rape or sexual assault, people would blame the victim. They would ask, yeah, but you were wearing sexy clothing, or like, yeah, but you were like, you asked for it. Like, why did you like wear such revealing clothes? So it's very important to never blame the victim, because it's not their fault. They didn't ask for this. Who, like, it causes a lot of psychological and physical damage. Nobody asked for this. So please always be mindful and never blame the victim. So for example, like in case of cybersexual assault, like if a person posts a picture in a revealing clothing, for example, if they're wearing shorts or if they're wearing a bikini and they get sexually harassed, please do not blame them. They are a victim. They're probably having a very bad time, and it's nowhere their fault for getting sexually harassed. So if you see pictures on social media of like celebrities or like, especially girls, if they're wearing like bikinis or sexually, or like open clothing, and you see all the comments, all the sexual comments, they're getting sexually harassed online. and it's not their fault. They have every right to upload that picture. It is their picture. So if they get sexually harassed, please do not blame the victim. And this is what, sorry, you can go.
And when people do post that, they're proud to post that. They're happy of the way they look in those pictures. So instead of putting negatives into their post, something that they're proud of, something that they're happy with their body. They're happy to be sharing that online. So we as social media users, we need to be supportive of that instead of commenting on their outfit and their attire. And just because somebody is wearing revealing clothing or somebody's wearing shorts, it is not an invitation for rape, for assault, for discrimination, and for harassment. So just be respectful of others using social media, because we're proud to post pictures online. Because we're happy with the way it looks. So sometimes it means a lot to people when the comments are very supportive instead of demeaning.
Okay, so this is what you guys can do if you're a victim of sexual harassment. You can seek help. So it is definitely traumatizing for anyone to go through that. So you can seek help, or you can talk to your closest people. You can talk to your best friends. You can confide in your family. It's your choice on who you choose to talk to, because it is your experience. So you can tell these to anyone you wish to, and it's your right to even confide in them about your experience. And as I said before, please keep all of the evidence of the sexual harassment that happened. Take screenshots of everything, of the messages, the emails, the DMs. Keep all of the evidence, because it will be very helpful if you ever would need to take this case to court. And if sexual harassment happened, you can call the police, or you can call the emergency line or the ambulance. In cases of sexual assault, rape, when it happens, do not shower and do not clean your body, because they will need to take DNA samples that will help with the case. So you can go to the closest emergency room and they can take the samples out of your genital areas. And it's very important to take notes of everything that happens in detail, in case you need to talk about this to like an officer, and you can tell them what happened based on your memory. But it's very important to take notes when it happens, so you know all the details. And it's very traumatizing for this to happen to anybody, whether it be online or in person. There's very many psychological long-term health effects. So it's very important, after you experience this as a victim, it might be very, very draining, and maybe you feel like very helpless, and you feel guilty, and you feel all these negative thoughts. Please seek help, and please take care of yourself, because we know that this is very hard for anybody to experience. And please seek help and you can talk to a counselor, you can talk to a mental health professional, to a psychologist, or just talk to your closest friends. They are there to support you and help you. But just remember that if you're a victim of sexual harassment, it is your right to tell people what happened. So if you don't want to report the case, or if you feel too ashamed, you just want to keep it yourself, it's totally up to you. It's your right. So you can either contact the police, or you can just keep it to yourself, or just tell your closest family members, because we know how hard it is for victims of sexual assault to come out with all the stigma and the discrimination that comes with it. many people blame the victim, especially in our country, Indonesia. It's very hard for victims of sexual assault to come out because they might be getting discriminated, or they might be victim blame. People around them might think of them in a negative way. They might instead blame them, like, why would you let this happen to you? Like, they would call you like names like you're a slut or something negative. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to come out when these things happen to them. But it's important to know that in the case when you do want to come out and seek help for your case, or whether you want to talk to the officials about it, it's important to know that you are the victim. You deserve justice. It's not right for this to happen to you, and the abuser should pay the price, because nobody should ever go through something like this in their life, because not only is it physically causing you effects, psychologically you have to live with that thing for the rest of your life. It's gonna follow you forever. So if something bad happens, it's totally up to you what you want to choose to do. You can either report it or not, but please, what's important to note is to take care of your own mental well-being. So whether it is talking to a counselor or talking to your friend, it's just very important to do that, because things like this, they don't have a good outcome. PTSD, depressive episodes, it can lead to suicides. Many sexual assault victims, they feel suicidal and they want to end it. So please take care of your mental health and just know your rights. And in the cases when you want to, report it to the government officials.
Yeah, and if you are looking for directions, looking for help, and you don't know what to do, you can always go online, and you can always be anonymous online. You can reach out to communities, organizations, campaigns online that can help you out. There are a lot of resources online that can help. So you can tell them anonymously, without revealing your name, without revealing any of your information. You can share with them, this happened to me, get feedback. What should I do? I need some help. I need some assistance on how I need to deal with this. If you don't have anybody around you, any support system close to you, there's always people online that can help and trusted. So
yeah,
social media is a great tool.
Yeah, banyak organisasi online that you can or even blogs, or where you can appear anonymous to tell your story. And there are a lot of support groups online. If you don't have anybody to talk to, or if you feel like you're alone and you're by yourself, you can go online, and there are those people that can help. There are a lot of people on Instagram. There are a lot of people, organizations on Instagram that you can talk to, DM, tell them what happened. There's a lot of resources that you can take online if you don't wish to report to the law officials.
So if your friend is a victim of sexual harassment or sexual assault or any sort of cybercrime, be supportive. You might be the only friend that they trust. You might be the only person who knows this information. So please support them. Please do not share this personal information with anybody else. They're trusting you with this information. They're trusting you that you will be there to support them. Be patient. Sometimes they don't want to tell everything all at once. Sometimes they just want to share a little bit of information on what they're feeling or what's going on. So please be patient on the information you receive, and be respectful, and always be there for them, because in the end of the day, this person is your friend. So support is going to be the #1 priority, and never blame them for what happened to them.
Yeah, so please be a good friend. Be a good friend. If somebody confides in you about their sexual assault, that means they trust you. So please give them all the respect and support because they need it. They need that support. They desperately need that support after the traumatic thing that happened to them. So please be a good friend. And as you all know, we're Gen Z, we're users of social media. We're on it hours and hours every single day. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok all the time. So as avid users of social media, it's really our responsibility to use social media responsibly and to always educate ourselves about the different privacy settings that are available in the different platforms. So please, we have to be a very good social media user. And as Gen Z, we're on it every day. Please do not be those people that leave negative comments on Instagram or on Facebook. We know a lot of people use fake accounts or they go under a fake name and they decide to leave nasty comments. Those are unwarranted and they're honestly not needed. So please just keep it to yourself. Do not spread negativity. What we can do is just educate people. So if you feel like you disagree with something, do not send hate. Like if you disagree with a picture that you see and you see these celebrities wearing bikinis, if you disagree, don't send them hate. It's your responsibility as a user to not spread that negativity. If you disagree, then don't say hate, just educate. Like just say things in a right way, do not send hate. People have their lives. People are dealing with their own battles every day. And social media is obviously not reality. People portray a different life on social media, even though they might seem happy on Instagram. We know it's not always that perfect on social media because a lot of people, they want to show this perfect life. And the reality is it's not that for most people. So if you add more hate or hateful comments, it's really going to affect them mentally. So we all know that Indonesian netizens, they like to, send hate mobs and comments. They're very notorious in sending those hate online, especially to like Western celebrities or, for example, Korean pop stars. And that can lead to suicide. We all know that. So mental health is especially important. And please, we have to be great users. We have to be literate. We have to educate ourselves daily in order to not, impact a person that way. So we always have to remember to be a responsible social media user. Do not send hate. Don't say anything sexual in nature. Please just take that tool and use it in a positive way. So it's important for us to just, post positive things. If you want to comment, you can do so, but it's so much better if you post a positive comment instead of inflicting hate on a person because it might have a negative impact. And honestly, with their own lives, with the battles that they have in their own life, please don't add up to that and just be a responsible user of social media.
Yes, the online world affects the real world. So whatever you post online, whatever you share online, it will affect somebody's real world. So just because they appear happy online, they might not be behind screens. So be mindful and be respectful of that. That's all. So here are some ways that you can protect yourself from cybersexual harassment. It's been mentioned before, but block and restrict people that you don't know on social media, accepting people that you know closely, changing passwords is important, making sure that it's not a common password, it's not just your name and your birthday. I know a lot of people do that. Document everything, documenting any sort of sexual messages in nature from somebody you don't know, any aggression towards you. Doesn't have to be sexual, but any aggression towards you is important to be documented. Privatize your accounts if you don't want the world to know. These things are basically the recap of what we've already talked about.
Ya, oke. Terima kasih Laila dan Maulana. Tadi ya, Miss akan rekap lagi yang disampaikan Laila dan Maulana bahwa terutama yang mau Miss highlight adalah tadi jika terjadi pada diri kamu apa yang harus dilakukan ya. Berarti boleh pilihan kamu misalnya terjadi di diri kamu, pilihan boleh kamu laporkan atau kamu tidak nyaman cari secara online ya untuk support karena ini memang hak kamu. Apapun yang terjadi kamu adalah korban dan kamu harus mencari bagaimana untuk meyakinkan bahwa kamu adalah korban. Jadi bukan kamu worth for that gitu. Jadi bisa mencari secara online untuk bantuan ini atau memang ke orang tua ataupun lapor ke pihak yang berwajib. Ini menjadi pilihan kamu. Tetapi yang harus diingat bahwa diri kamu tidak pantas dan tidak dan itu adalah yang menarik tadi disampaikan Laila bahwa kita ya memang saya lihat banyak di di survei-survei bahwa pelaku netizen atau ucapan ya netizen Indonesia itu memang kadang-kadang sangat notorious ya, notorious banyak hal yang tidak baiknya ya, agak jelek-jelek, mean gitu. Dan ingat apapun komen yang kamu berikan ya kepada selebriti, kepada orang lain itu efek kepada real life-nya, kehidupan nyatanya. Kita lihat beberapa selebriti Korea ya, karena efek dari netizen mereka melakukan bunuh diri. Jadi janganlah ucapan kita ini memberikan beban ke orang lain. Dan benar banyak orang yang kelihatan bahagia, senang, berhasil, sukses di foto media sosialnya tidak mewakili jika hal ini terjadi. Dan terus terang ini sering terjadi ya dari beberapa tahun yang lalu, tapi memang karena kita pandemik jadi kita tidak banyak case yang kita pegang ya, tapi biasanya ini banyak sekali dan kadang-kadang memang kita selesaikan secara kekeluargaan dan seterusnya ya. Saya sharing sedikit bahkan ada yang sampai diedit ya, fotonya itu diedit, sebenarnya nggak seperti itu, diedit malah lebih menyeramkan dan itu memang untuk mempermalu-malukan ya, dan itu bisa waktu itu ada untuk pemilihan sesuatu prestasi, tapi di lain pihak orang yang tidak menyukai seseorang ini melakukan spreading penyebaran gambar yang tidak senonoh tadi, bahkan tuh diedit, jadi aslinya tidak seperti itu. Jadi hati-hati sekali dengan hal ini. Jadi pada umumnya tugas pihak sekolah itu adalah jika terjadi akan menyelidiki kasus ini, lalu kami tidak akan pernah menyalahkan korban ya, kita akan melihat korban ya sebagai korban yang harus kita lihat bagaimana kronologi dan bagaimana kejadiannya. Lalu tidak akan pernah mempermalukan korban, dan korban ini pasti akan kami jaga privasinya, tidak akan kita share nama atau kita umumkan atau tidak, dan kita akan memanggil orang yang hanya benar-benar terkait ya, yang benar-benar terkait. Lalu juga mengambil tindakan yang tepat untuk menghukum si penyerang ya, yang melakukan hal ini. Jika memang parah tindakannya maka kita perlu juga melakukan laporan ke kantor polisi, lalu juga menginfokan kepada orang tua yang melakukan hal ini ya, melakukan assault ini atau penyerangan ini, lalu kita memperlakukan serius kejadian ini. Dan kita juga tentang kebijakan kekerasan pelecehan seksual kita sudah lakukan di di handbook ya, kita sudah jelaskan, bahkan kita intimate romance ya, menunjukkan romance itu juga tidak boleh di sekolah karena memang ini salah satunya untuk menjaga hal-hal ini tidak terjadi. Lalu juga kita akan membuat siswa akan merasa aman di sekolah ya, dengan membuat ada guru-guru yang menjadi in charge ketika di istirahat, dengan ada CCTV di sekolah, jadi kamu akan selalu terpantau dan akan merasa aman. Oke, next slide, Maulana. Ya, di sini adalah kontak hotline yang perlu kalian miliki ya ketika hal-hal itu terjadi, yaitu Komnas Perlindungan Anak, nomornya di sini, Komnas Perempuan, Kesehatan Jiwa dan Pencegahan Bunuh Diri, dan Komnas HAM. Jadi kita sebenarnya dilindungi hak-hak asasi kita, perlindungan kita ya terhadap ini oleh pemerintah. Jadi ini juga sering kita lihat ketika nanti ada misalnya ketika selebriti ataupun orang terkenal atau figur-figur ya yang punya case seperti ini, kita juga lihat oh ya ada Komnas anak ya, perempuan dan seterusnya. Baik, next slide. Ini ada pertanyaan ya, sesi pertanyaan. Miss Vivin, mohon di-lead Miss Vivin. Silakan.
Oke. Baik, terima kasih Miss Rama, terima kasih Miss Laila dan Mr. Maulana. Itu tadi pemaparannya sangat panjang lebar, tapi sangat dalam sekali gitu ya. Mulai dari ciri-cirinya, seksual harassment seperti apa, kemudian cara penanganannya. Nah, mungkin sebelumnya ini kan kita teman-teman SMA Global Mandiri ini usia-usia antara 15 sampai 17 tahun, bahkan ada yang 18 tahun adalah usia-usia yang memang pertumbuhan fisik dan emosinya sedang labil-labilnya gitu ya, dan banyak sekali punya teman-teman gitu ya, baik itu di dunia maya maupun di lingkungan sekitarnya. Nah, mungkin ada pertanyaan anak-anakku sekalian berkaitan dengan pelecehan seksual gitu ya. Karena
Miss Vivin, itu di chat ada Miss Vivin, mohon Laila ya, di chat ada satu pertanyaan.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Miss Rama. Yang lain kalau misalnya ada pertanyaan boleh di chat Zoom ataupun langsung di audionya dinyalakan. Ini ada pertanyaan dari Michael Wirdana. Sorry Kak, aku mau tanya, menurut pendapat Kakak, siapa yang bersalah di situasi penyebarluasan foto pribadi? Apakah orang yang would take the picture of themselves dengan kondisi seperti itu dan memberikannya ke orang yang terdekat, atau mungkin pasangannya mau itu pria atau wanita atau orang yang menyebarluaskan foto tersebut di luar sepengetahuan pemilik foto itu? Oke, silakan Miss Laila dan Mr. Maulana. Coba dijawab dulu saja gitu ya, nanti satu-satu kalau misalnya ada yang mau bertanya lagi nanti bisa di chat Zoom ataupun di audio, silakan.
You want to take this one? What? No, I'm not taking this one.
Laila, you can see the chat. Okay.
Yang bersalah di situasi ini itu orang yang menyebarluaskannya. Whether it be the girlfriend, kayak itu pria atau wanita, or the boyfriend, it's not the victim's fault ever in any case. It's the person's fault untuk menyebarluasin foto privasi itu, soalnya kayak emang mereka udah dapet konsen orang ini? Enggak kan? Jadi ini tuh selalu salah orang yang nyebarin, bukan salah orang yang mengambil foto itu, karena they might take that picture and send it to you because they trust you, karena mereka percaya sama kalian, makanya mereka ngirim. Jadi itu bukan in any way or in any capacity their fault for having their picture being leaked atau disebarin. Jadi ini bukan salah yang orang yang motoin itu, tapi yang salah ini itu the pria or the wanita yang nyebarin. Jadi victimnya nggak pernah salah.
Oke, Michael, bagaimana Michael dengan jawaban Miss Laila?
Terima kasih Kak.
Oke,
sama-sama.
Ada lagi silakan yang mau. Oke, ada lagi nih Kak Laila yang bertanya. Silakan dibuka saja biar lebih jelas ya, karena panjang sekali pertanyaannya. Dari Adelia 12 Tokyo, tentang having sex kan harus ada consent nih ya. And recently I found out about stealing or removing condom without the person. Nah, pertanyaannya bagaimana nih caranya?
This one? Yeah.
So, well, when you had consent, can you ask the person, right? You agreed to have sex with a condom on. So when you remove the condom and you have sex without it, then the consent is no longer there and it's a blur. It wouldn't be considered rape because they agreed to have sex with you, but you need to clarify with them that the expectation is that either one, you have sex protected with a condom or not. And if at that time, if you remove the condom and they say, no, I don't want to have sex with you anymore, then don't. If you do, then that would be considered rape. So so initially, when they give you consent to have sex with a condom, then you can. But if once they find out that you are not using one and the consent is no longer valid, then that would be considered as rape. So always ask them and always make sure that you still have consent even during during the sexual intercourse.
Karena kalian cuman konsennya if you do the intercourse with a condom. Ya kan? You consented into doing the intercourse with a condom. Jadi if they take it off, then technically they don't have your consent for that. You know? Jadi it would be considered sexual harassment. Not rape, but it is clear that the expectation is to put a condom on. Jadi it's better for a person to be extremely kayak transparent in the whole act of sexual intercourse from start to end. So if the expectation is to use a condom, then that person must use a condom from the beginning till the end. If that person secretly takes off the condom and kayak continues to having sex, they don't have that consent. So they technically harass this person, you know? Unless they have the consent of the person, kayak, can I take off my condom, dan dibilang boleh, then that's fine. Karena they already got the consent. But if they just take it off without you knowing, then that is wrong. You cannot do that. I do got a question. Tadi aku private. Somebody direct messaged me. And it says, how do you think we should approach a significant other who thinks asking for consent is ruining the mood? You want to take this one?
Go ahead, you take this one.
You take this one.
Asking for consent is important, but there are different ways for you to ask for consent. You don't have to explicitly ask them a whole question. Would you like to have sex? No, you don't. But there are more subtle ways, but having a verbal yes would definitely be consent. So a nod, a yes, any sort of indication is a method of consent. So it's still important to request for consent every single time, but you don't have to explicitly say it or ask thoroughly on whether you can have sex or not.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also the responsibility, like, you know, if you're like doing like maybe you're kissing and it's gonna lead up to sex, it's always important to know if your partner is comfortable. You know, they might be uncomfortable doing it. They might be, oh no, like I just wanna like make out with you. I don't wanna have sex with you, you know? So it's like, it's always important to ask for consent and to obviously make your partner feel comfortable. So if the partner is not feeling comfortable, then, you know, if they don't specifically say no.
Hello, sister.
Keep going.
Sister.
Who was that?
Keep going.
Okay, pokoknya kayak kalian, kayak if you're uncomfortable, misalnya nih kalian you're in the mood, udah kayak ciuman apa, kayak it's gonna lead up to sex. If you're uncomfortable, speak up. And when you speak up and you say no, you don't want to have sex, then they don't have your consent. And also, it's your responsibility to be a good partner. Jadi kalian, when you're doing that, when you're, for example, you're making out, you have to be a good partner and make sure that your boyfriend or girlfriend is comfortable in what you're doing.
Okay.
So it might ruin the mood or whatever, tapi kayak it's important for you to get their consent. So if your partner don't respect you, kayak just because you're ruining the mood, kayak if they don't respect you enough, then they're a bad person. Just don't have sexual intercourse with them. So, yeah.
Oke, thank you, Lai. Ini kayaknya yang pertanyaan selanjutnya Miss Rama yang bahas ya, ini mengapa UU ITE dibuat di era SBY dan terjadi di era Jokowi, ini dari Muhammad Farel ya, 11 Athena. Ya memang karena di zamannya sekarang ya, memang waktu di era Jokowi, penggunaan media sosial semakin sangat tinggi, apalagi di tengah pandemik ya, sangat banyak, dan kita lihat ya banyak sekali kejadian-kejadian yang orang merasa tidak senang, tidak nyaman menggunakan undang-undang ini karena mereka dilanggar hak-haknya. Lalu kedua, saya mau tahu tentang undang-undang pornografi, yaitu UU 44 tahun 2008. Wah, Farel keren banget ya. Benar, ini Miss Rama juga lihat ya, di sini memang ini dibuat oleh Departemen Agama. Saya ingatkan bahwa kita adalah negara yang beragama ya. Jadi di sini memang di dalam undang-undang ini yang dimaksud adalah pornografi adalah gambar sketsa, ilustrasi, foto, tulisan, suara, bunyi, gambar, bergerak, animasi, kartun, percakapan, gerak tubuh atau bentuk pesan lainnya melalui berbagai bentuk media komunikasi dan atau pertunjukan di muka umum yang membuat pencabulan atau eksploitasi seksual yang melanggar norma kesusilaan dalam masyarakat. Sangat banyak ya. Lalu juga ada mengenai di sini tentang ini yang penting ya di pasal 4. Larangan dan pembatasan di bab 2, larangan pembatasan pasal 4, setiap orang dilarang memproduksi, membuat, memperbanyak, menggandakan, menyebarluaskan, menyiarkan, mengimpor, mengekspor, menawarkan, memperjualbelikan, menyewakan atau menyediakan pornografi yang secara eksplisit memuat persenggamaan, termasuk ini intercourse ya bahasa Inggrisnya, lalu kekerasan seksual ya sexual harassment, masturbasi atau onani, ketelanjangan atau tampilan yang mengesankan ketelanjangan ya. Ini ada kejadian kemarin seorang tokoh ya yang perempuan yang dia jalan hampir telanjang ya, dia protes lalu dia akhirnya menghadapi masalah hukum ya, karena memang di Indonesia tidak boleh melakukan hal ini. Lalu juga membahas dengan pornografi anak, jasa pornografi, dan sangat detail sekali. Ya memang di Indonesia lebih ketat ya, sangat ketat mengenai aturan-aturan ini. Terima kasih Farel, semoga yang Miss jelaskan bisa dilihat, tapi memang ini masih sangat luas ya, ini harus kita bahas lagi lebih detail. Terima kasih. Ya, ada lagi?
Ada yang DM private message aku. Ya, aku mau tanya Kak, pendapat Kakak tentang korban pelecehan seksual yang selalu disalahkan sama orang-orang dengan alasan mereka yang menghasut dengan cara mereka berpakaian. Padahal kita kan bebas dalam menggunakan pakaian. You want to take this?
Okay, take it.
Oh,
jadi this is the last ya, because we have limited time. Okay.
Pendapat aku sih, this is a big issue yang kayak it happens a lot in Indonesia especially, karena kan netizen Indonesia kan suka kayak aneh-aneh gitu ya, kayak sexualize everything. Kayak people in Indonesia tend to over sexualize things, and kayak even kayak aku di Amerika, this is still an issue juga. Kayak masih banyak korban-korban pelecehan seksual yang disalahin gara-gara mereka berpakaian terbuka misalnya. And I think that this is very bad and very shallow gara-gara they're the victims. Kayak kalian bebas mau pakai apapun yang kalian mau. Dan berpakaian terbuka itu bukan berarti kalian mengundang orang-orang ini untuk nge-sexually harass kalian. Jadi misalnya, kalau misalnya nih, ada korban sexual assault, kayak korban pemerkosaan nih. Banyak di sosial media, kayak, emang kamu pakai baju apa malam itu? When it happened, kamu pasti pakai baju terbuka kan? Pasti banyak deh netizen-netizen kayak, bukan cuma Indonesia, tapi kayak di luar negeri juga, yang pasti nyalahin, cari cara aja untuk nyalahin korbannya. Padahal kan, ya itu bebas dia mau pakai pakaian apapun. Dia pakai pakaian itu bukan buat orang lain, tapi buat diri dia sendiri. Jadi for a victim untuk disalahin for what they wear, and then getting blamed for being sexually assaulted atau raped, it's very shallow, and honestly, this happens globally. Masih banyak orang yang victim shame. Pasti orang selalu cari aja cara untuk nyalain korbannya. Kayak, dan kebanyakan juga kayak korban wanita ya, yang kayak pasti disalahin, pasti dikata-katain. Kenapa baju terbuka? Pasti kayak kamu kan yang kayak deketin cowoknya, atau kayak pasti disalahin kayak kenapa minum alkohol. Tapi itu nggak benar. Kayak it's never right to victim shame, dan ini selalu salah perpetratornya, selalu salah pemerangnya. Jadi never victim shame. Mau dia pakai apa, karena banyak loh yang kayak pakai baju nih ya, nggak harus pakai baju yang terbuka. Kayak banyak kok kayak kasus-kasus pemerkosaan, sexual assault yang terjadi kayak mereka misalnya pakai baju panjang. Kayak nggak harus baju terbuka. Jadi baju has nothing to do with getting sexually assaulted. Itu salah penyerangnya. Kayak nggak bener untuk nyalain orang for getting raped gara-gara what they wear. Karena banyak anak kecil juga loh pakai baju anak kecil. Banyak deh. Kayak ada museum gitu di Amerika yang nunjukin baju of the night people get sexually assaulted, dan itu nggak baju terbuka. Pokoknya tuh bukan salah pakaian. Ini emang salah orang ya. Jadi menurut aku it's never right to victim shame or to in any way kayak nyerang the victim. So, dan ini masih banyak yang kayak mentally everywhere people think this way and it's not right. Jadi we have to be that person. Kita harus educate ourselves daily karena kita, come on, we're the generation, we're Gen Z. We have all these kayak technology and all the social media in our hands. Jadi kita harus responsible dan jangan pernah kayak we have to educate ourselves. Don't be we have to be open-minded. Don't be that person that is uneducated and victim shame people. Jadi ini pertanyaan bagus banget karena I have a lot to say about that. Tapi kayak it's not about the pakaian. Jadi it's about the person. Jadi whoever the penyerang, you're the bad person. Do not ever shame a woman, objectify a woman based on what they're wearing. Itu kalian, itu otak-otak the penyerang tuh yang bener. Karena ngapain kalian sexualize? Emang kayak cewek-cewek pakai bikini untuk di objectify, untuk jadi objek kayak sexual your sexual tendency gitu kan enggak. Jadi ini tuh bukan buat kamu. Jadi men kan in general kan banyak ya laki-laki yang over sexualize women. Apalagi nanti di Indonesia yang laki-lakinya kan pasti kayak over sexualize women's bodies. Mau pakai terbuka, banyak kok yang pakai nih ya, misalnya pakai t-shirt aja yang ketat, pasti di over sexualize. Jadi please educate yourself. Itu immature banget. Jangan sexualize women's bodies. They're not an object for your kayak pleasure. So please be respectful. Harus selalu respectful to everybody. Dan ya kalau ya gitu.
Okay.
In America, it doesn't really fly.
Okay, Laila, thank you very much. You get the point-nya. Jadi berarti perkosaan bisa terjadi kapan saja, di mana saja, no matter what they wear ya. But yang salah tetap assault-nya, penyerangnya, pelaku kejahatan tersebut. Ya, ini terima kasih banget Laila dan Maulana ya, mau sharing, mau memberikan informasi kepada SMA Global Mandiri, siswa-siswa khususnya 11-12. Terima kasih atas waktunya malam-malam di Amerika. Jam berapa sekarang? 10 malam ya?
Sekarang jam 11.25.
Oke, jangan bosan untuk selalu bergabung di acara-acara kita. Oke, Miss Vivin, saya kembalikan ke Miss Vivin.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Miss Rahma, Kak Laila dan Kak Maulana dan serta anak sekalian. Ini karena sudah jam 10:25 ya. Kita tutup saja. Mudah-mudahan nanti kita akan bisa ketemu lagi dengan tema-tema selanjutnya ya Kak Laila dan Kak Maulana ya. Jangan bosan-bosan ketemu dengan anak-anak SMA Global Mandiri. Mungkin nanti kalau misalnya ada pertanyaan lagi ya, nanti
boleh
kita
DM.
Boleh
DM.
Follow me. Kayaknya Kak Laila asik nih ya kalau menerangkan sangat api-api gitu. Gitu. Terima kasih banyak semuanya. Ini ada sesi foto atau tidak, Mr. Arif? Apakah sudah difoto semuanya?
Boleh sesi foto dulu.
Ya, boleh foto dulu ya.
Kameranya dibuka semuanya ya, diaktifkan.
Ya, Miss dan guru-guru
Oh,
yang lain
wow.
anak yang masih standby ditambah nilainya ya, karena mereka sangat disiplin, mereka menunggu sampai akhir, kasih tambah nilai buat mereka ya. Mau di data yang masih ada di sini, yang ada fotonya nanti ini untuk laporan ke orang tua. Jadi mohon di videonya dilihatkan ya wajahnya ya.
Nyalakan semuanya ya. Oke, thank you. Sudah on cam ada Farel nih, ada Michael juga sudah on cam. Yang lain segera.
Apa-apa seragam nggak apa-apa. Ayo, yang penting pakai baju ya, yang sopan. Yuk.
Ini sebetulnya kalau pertanyaannya jadi top, Miss Rama masih banyak yang mau DM lagi.
Iya, ini DM aja Kakak Laila
ya.
Ya,
DM aja, aku asik loh.
Ya.
Kayak kalau mau nanya-nanya apapun, aku tuh yang nggak jauh lah seumuran
kuliah
juga.
Ya, mau kuliah juga boleh di DM juga Kak Maulana. Info di sana bagaimana mereka sangat ini kok, sangat ramah ya untuk
kalau mau nanya
berdiskusi.
tentang kuliah di Amerika atau mau mengambil psikologi nanti di kuliahnya atau pengen graduate school di luar negeri, aku tuh santai loh. Jadi DM aja, santai aja ngobrol-ngobrol gitu loh.
Ini kayak seusia kayak masih SMA lah tuh kan.
Nggak jauh lah umurnya, juga masih kuliah.
Oke, bisa Arif sudah dipoto?
Sudah, Miss, sudah dipoto.
Thank you anak-anak.
Oke, terima kasih banyak semuanya ya. Selamat beristirahat.
Thank you, Miss.
Terima kasih, Miss. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss.